Hi everybody, Susie Q here at Q Aquatics. And today I am celebrating 1 year in the fish hobby and I am enjoying the ride. So let me tell you about the top 5 things that I've learned in this past year about the fish hobby. From a beginner's point of view, of course. Number 1, the nitrogen cycle. Learned that the hard way. Number 2, I have to do my research. Number 3, plants. Plants and fish have a symbiotic relationship. They help each other tremendously. Plants. Number 4, quarantine your fish. I learned this the hard way. I need to quarantine my fish. Number 5, hashtag FishFam, you rock. Number 5. Let's go over these 5. Number 1, the nitrogen cycle. So sit back and let me tell you a little story. In my very first tank, 1 year ago, I went to the fish store with it. I had a 10-gallon tank at home and I wanted to pick up a couple goldfish for my granddaughter's 2nd birthday. You can imagine what the people at the fish store told me. So the one man came up to me and he started explaining the nitrogen cycle and how it works and that maybe I should go home and do some research, but he could see that I was visibly upset that I wasn't going to have this fish tank for my daughter. So he gave me a couple of Danios to start off with, saying you can use these to help you cycle your tank, yada yada. So I get home and I start doing some research, and now these fish are swimming around in my tank, and then I'm reading about what is it doing to their gills, what ammonia burn is. I was horrified that I was doing this to a fish, so I started to do water changes every day. I did water changes on that 10-gallon tank every day for the first 5 weeks until my reading showed 0 ammonia, 0 nitrites, and very small amount of nitrates. So I had to learn about the nitrogen cycle. It was interesting. I had no idea what went beyond.
We're sorry, the number you have dialed is not in service at this time.
I know many of my friends have no idea. They talk about getting a fish tank, throwing fish in there. Now I can be like, let me explain something. Hold on, and then let them make their own choices. But I had no idea. Nobody ever talked about that in my world. I just told people I was getting a fish tank. They said, that's great. She's gonna love it. It was great Grammy Zoe bonding, which it has been. But I had a lot of learning to do, and the number 1 was a nitrogen cycle and beneficial bacteria. Where beneficial bacteria grows, how it's killed, how to keep beneficial bacteria alive. Number 1, nitrogen cycle. Number 2 thing that I learned, I had to do my research.
Please hang up and try again.
I had to do my research on what the nitrogen cycle was. I have to do my research on fish, where they come from, how they live, what's their habitat. Do they like warm water, cold water? Do they like tank mates? Can they be of other species or can they only be other species? The hardness of the water that they're used to. Even if they're tank raised, some fish like a pH a little higher than others. I have to do research on how big do they get, how fast do they get, what kind of foods do they eat. So if I have a whole tank full of fish, we all have different foods, or a tank full of fish that this fish shouldn't eat that much protein because in this fish, I have to do my research. And so as I started doing my research early on, I realized that the fish that I wanted to keep, which were these little African cichlids and bunas from the Lake Malawi, that I couldn't have those in my community tank. So I very quickly realized I had to set up another tank. And another. And another. I love it. I absolutely love it. So the number 2 thing that I learned, I have to do my research. Number 3, plants. I've always kept plants in my house, spider plants, house plants. I had little gardens outside all the time. So when I found out that plants that plants and aquariums have the symbiotic relationship, I was like, this is perfect. This is a match made in heaven. So I started to learn about plants and how the roots of the plants can suck up some nitrates, so I don't have to do water changes as much. They put out fresh, better water quality for the fish. The waste of the fish is like vitamin power water for the plants. It's just a very nice cycle of that, and they work well and they look amazing. I kind of thought when I first started setting up my tank, I had to use plastic plants. I was told that they're just going to die back and cause more ammonia. I am so happy I did my research on this and learned about the plants. So I started planting my tanks. Even though they were still cycling, I started planting them. I learned what plants could go in substrate of soil, what plants would do better in gravel, sand, what plants do better buried down deep, others rhizomes not buried. Attached to rocks, attached to wood, free floating, stem plants, how to propagate. All plants are propagated a little differently. I have learned so much. I've also learned that you can get hitchhikers on plants when they come in from outside sources. Lessons learned in my first year. Love plants. I don't think I have any tanks set up that don't have any plants. Aside from some tanks that the fish do not prefer the plants. So even my goldfish have plants. I put my duckweed in there. It's salad to them. They love the duckweed. So I scoop out a little duckweed and throw it in there, and they love it. Absolutely love it. My African cichlids, I think there's only the bulbitis is the only plant I'm able to keep alive in my Mbuna tank that they don't pick at, that they don't eat, that they don't tear up, because they like to rescape, move the sand around. They put the rocks where they want to, and I let them. So plants in my aquariums. Number 3 thing, plants and aquariums have a symbiotic relationship. Number 4, quarantine. I learned to quarantine my fish, and I learned it the hard way. So there's a lot of information out there on the web, good and bad, varying from A to Z, Yale to jail, however you want to put it. There's all different opinions on quarantine. Quarantine with medicine, don't quarantine with medicine, quarantine and just watch your fish. But one thing I've noticed that's a common denominator, quarantine your fish. I learned that. I got this cute little Mbuna. I had to have him. I put him in quarantine for 2 days. He looked good. I was cleaning out the tank and rearranging the rocks. I figured while I was rearranging the rocks, I was going to put him in, since they kind of need to find their new territories. They wouldn't be picking on him as much. So I did that, and then in a couple days, maybe even a week later, I noticed this fish had ick. Well, this tank also had 6 of my clown loaches in it. They got ick. And then I tried treating the tank. Being a new fish keeper, I tried raising the temperature. I tried half dosing medicine. I lost all but 1 of my clown loaches because I didn't quarantine this cute, tiny little $5 fish. I've learned my lesson, so now I quarantine. My biggest problem in the first year is every time I set up a quarantine tank and the quarantine of maybe 3 weeks was over, I decided to use that tank and set it up as a new tank, as a new tank. So now I have a designated tank for quarantine. I also have little terrarium boxes. If it's just a small fish and needs to be quarantined, I have sponge filters I can throw in, seasoned sponge filters that I learned from my nitrogen cycle, seasoned sponge filters that I could throw in and have ad hoc quarantine tanks, so I'm not quarantining this set of fish. And then, I go to my aquarium society and get this fish. Well, I'm not going to quarantine them with these that I got from like PetSmart, Petco. So then I'll set up another little quarantine for these guys and make sure that they're happy and healthy for the next 3 weeks. Number 4 thing, quarantine. Critical. Number 5, the fish fam rocks. Let me tell you, hashtag fish fam, you keep me going. I am honored to be a part of the fish world. Out there on the internet, there's a lot of information, a lot of people. A lot of people with opinions. There's a lot of mean people out there. Let me tell you, it's very easy as a new hobbyist to ask a question about what you're doing, and there's people out there that they attack you. I was verbally attacked many times by, I call them the fish police. Instead of being helpful and encouraging, they were very rude, mean, know-it-alls. Like, I understand, I'm brand new, I didn't know it, but you don't have to call me an idiot for not doing research. I did research. There's a lot of stuff out there that I didn't pick up one thing, or I didn't do this one right, or I thought I could do this for a couple weeks until that. But then I met this internet group of people called #FishFam. They're encouraging. They share the wealth of knowledge and experience that they have. They want you to succeed. They want to keep the hobby going. Young hobbyists, we support young hobbyists all the time to keep them growing. New hobbyists. I have met such a wonderful group of people online that not everybody's a fish police. There are out there. A lot of the fish fam groups that I'm in, they're not allowed in there. One negative comment and out they go. It's for spreading the positivity of this hobby. It's for sharing knowledge, sharing your experiences, not demeaning, not putting someone down. Number 5, fish fam, you rock. So those are the top 5 things I've learned in my first year of aquarium keeping. I want to thank all my subscribers. I think it's awesome. I can't believe that I have people that listen to me and watch me go through my trials and tribulations of knowing absolutely hardly anything about fish keeping. But what I'm learning, I'll share, and I get so many great comments. I was doing a salty Sunday and somebody said, you might want to turn your power head off before you feed. Like, great tips that I didn't. You can do as much research as you want, and you're not going to get all the information, and well, I'm not going to get it all, and I'm not going to retain it all. So the feedback that I'm getting is great. So I have to thank my subscribers and the people that comment. I really appreciate it. I think I have a little over 100 subscribers, and I love you all. So if you're interested in what I'm doing 2 videos a week. Tuesdays tanks. I go over all my tanks one at a time. Rescape them, trim back the plants, clean them out, do before and after shots, show what substrate I used. I love feedback. I love tips and tricks. The other one I'm doing is Freshwater Fridays. I do every Friday something I'm learning either about the filtration system, foods, whatever. There's so much to learn that I just want to share as much as I can. I also just want to document the growth that I'm having in this hobby. I love this hobby, and I think it utilizes so much. So I'd have to say, aside from the top 5 things, the biggest takeaway I have after 1 year, don't give up. Don't give up. I know it's tough. It's really hard trying to learn all these things. There's so many parts that they're not no-brainers yet. You're still learning. I was still researching. Some was trial and error. Don't give up. So many people in this hobby, when they're starting off, they give up. Either they run into the fish police, or they get so discouraged, or they feel heartbroken because they're responsible for killing fish. Don't give up. Don't give up. Thanks for watching, and I hope you continue with me. Subscribe if you like my content, and I will see you next week. Thanks.